What is up, Karma Nation? Welcome into another edition of our MLB Live podcast. It is for Thursday, June 3rd. We have a surprisingly good slate of games with eight. We had a four-game early slate that didn't really go according to plan with Garrett Cole getting lit up. But we're going to be discussing the 7 o'clock slate. I am here with Rueb. So tell me how you're doing today, man.
I'm good, Bales. This 8-game slate tonight. Normally we don't have these, bigger slates on Thursday nights, but I'm excited to get into it. I think there's some interesting spots, a few elite pitchers, and we'll dive right into it.
I'll say before we get started, I know it's 8 games, so ownership does get spread out a little bit, but correct me if I'm wrong. The cash lineup is just Yu Darvish, Lance Lynn, and the Brewers, correct?
Yeah, basically. Yep. I mean, that's going to be an extremely popular build today for sure with Jeffers from the Twins, which we could talk about at catcher just about him last night. So
yeah, I think it makes it a really interesting tournament slate because it's always kind of weird when you have to rely on just an atrocious offense like the Brewers, because obviously they can put up runs. They're in the matchup, but it's not like a bad pitcher can't just shut down that offense any given night, right?
yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
So let's get started at pitcher here. Truthfully, I think it's very, very easy to see where you're going in cash games. You're going to pay for Yu Darvish. You're going to pay for Lance Lynn. If you don't play one of those two, I think Eliza Hernandez is probably where you're going. Is there anyone else that you're really considering in cash today?
It's pretty difficult. I mean, the one name outside of Darvish and Lynn, and just to preface it, I do think that those are the two guys that I'm prioritizing, even in GPPs today. I mean, they're just in fantastic spots. We know that the Mets have been rolling out this like AAA lineup. Yes, McCann and Lindor have been hitting as of late, and they just got back Alonso. But I mean, it's still a pretty weak lineup here, and we always like to chase Yu Darvish and his strikeout upside, especially under 11K on this slate. And then just to touch on Lance Lynn a little bit, just a great matchup against the Tigers. They're hovering around a team 30% strikeout rate. We know that Tony La Russa is going to let Lance Lynn go deep into games and work over 100 pitches, and we love that in our starters, especially on a shorter slate without a lot of elite arms other than them. I think some other guys to consider for me, Anthony Scalfani is interesting against this Cubs lineup that strikes out a bunch, but I mean, they've been getting hot as well. The bottom of their order is really, really weak. If you can find a way to navigate Chris Bryant, who's been unbelievably hot, and make Javi swing and miss, I mean, this is really a lineup that you can generate a lot of Ks with. Anderson, not extremely excited about him. He feels a little bit overpriced to me at 8.7K, but D-backs lineup getting a little bit healthier with Christian Walker and Kento Marte back, but still a lineup that you can find some strikeouts with. Other than those guys, I mean, anyone else you play, I mean, it's going to be really, really contrarian tonight.
Yeah, I agree. I think one more guy that I would more or less be interested in, and don't get me wrong, he's not a good pitcher, and I do think he's overpriced at 8,200, but Tyler Anderson, it's a lefty against Miami. We know that, their lineup really should be good against lefties just based on who they're putting out. It's not really overly dominant. There's a lot of strikeouts to be had. And it isn't like Anderson's looked that bad this season. He seems to have stepped his game up a little bit. Besides that, I always think you can throw someone against Seattle. So I think that Griffin Canning is 100% fine. Adam Wainwright, it's just I'm not going to pay almost $10,000 for him. I think the price tag is a little bit too high. I'm 50-50 on to whether I would just move up to Taijuan Walker or if I would throw Wainwright. I think Waino has a much better shot at getting the win, but I also just believe that Taijuan Walker's throwing better right now. So either way, I don't know. I guess I'm fine with them in tournaments, but more or less, Yu Darvish and Lance Lynn are in a tier of their own. I think then the next tier would kind of be like Griffin Canning. I think Tyler Anderson, Hernandez, Desclafani. I'm not really a Brett Anderson guy. I don't know. I just
Yeah,
have been watching him
it's not
throw
really that
terribly for
appealing. Yeah.
people. But that's more or less it,
I do think
realistically.
Yeah, I do think the one interesting aspect could be just seeing what kind of lineup the Padres roll out tonight. We had Tommy Pham collide in the outfield last night, so he may miss tonight. Tatis missed the game yesterday. He may be out again today. So if we get like a really watered down Padres lineup that comes out post lock, while they wait on some of this injury news to shake out, like we could get a very low owned Walker against like a AAA lineup here. So that's definitely an interesting spot to monitor for tournaments.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think we can move to stacks at this point. As we kind of touched on, Milwaukee is going to be the chalk stack. They're too cheap. They get the matchup against a bad starter, a terrible Arizona bullpen. So add in that they have a 5.5 implied team total. It's just they're the clear cut chalk, I believe, since you're going for a double spend up. But what stacks are you looking at tonight?
For me, I think one under the radar one that could go overlooked Casey Mize. Mize has a ton of talent, and he has had some success this year against inferior opponents. But I just think he matches up really poorly for this White Sox lineup. The White Sox have been extremely patient at the plate this season. That's the one thing Mize has struggled with is his control. So, guys near the top of the order here in Tim Anderson and Yohan Moncada, Jose Abreu, Mercedes, Grandal. I mean, they're extremely patient hitters, and they're going to draw walks, and I think they're a pretty appealing team stack. If they are able to get the Casey Mize, then they could get some of those weaker arms in the Detroit bullpen as well. Some good weather in Chicago tonight always helps, and a healthy implied team total as well. So they're an interesting stack for me. And then probably my favorite stack is just to keep attacking J.A. Happ. It's been a profitable strategy for me this year. I don't think he's very good. I think there's some people who still think he has something left in the tank. I don't know what they see that I don't, but going to guys like Whit Merrifield, Salvador Perez, seeing where Hunter Dozier or Soler end up in the lineup here, they're fairly cheap at 2.9K and 3.1 respectively. To round out a stack with the expensive guys in Merrifield and Sal Perez.
Yeah, I was going to say my favorite stack is Kansas City, so I'm glad you touched on that. I agree that the White Sox are interesting. Just adding a couple more stacks that you can use. The Angels, I don't really like Sheffield very much. The Angels make a solid stacking option. You can go back to Minnesota. It just seems like every time we play Minnesota, they do absolutely nothing. But the upside's 100% there. I believe that Arizona is relatively interesting just because I'm not a Brett Anderson guy. I do understand that they're like a very risky stack, that they do struggle at times against left-handed pitching, but I don't know. I'm relatively fine with them. And then I think if you want to throw in like the Giants against Zach Davies has not looked good at all this year. I'm more or less fine with all of them. I think overall there won't be too many stacks that you're going to have me try to convince you not to play tonight. I just don't love the pitching, but overall, I think that the Royals are one for me. I would probably put the Brewers at 2, and then I would probably round out with the Angels and Twins most likely, but a lot of different options. We can kind of talk about each position here, starting at catcher. I'll let you start off. What are you looking at catcher here?
Man, last night was really frustrating for me. I was going to play Ben Roarvet if he made the lineup there for the Twins. The Twins, were waiting on MLB roster moves, and then they come out, and Ryan Jeffers is Smith here, and then Ryan Jeffers goes out, hits a home run in his first at bat, and then triples in a run in his third at bat, drops 26 points as chalk. And I was extremely disappointed getting off that. But what are you going to do? I mean, the guy was hitting 100 on the year, and he just had like literally a career night last night getting in the lineup, and he's going to be chalk again tonight at 2K, filling in for the injured Mitch Garver against a lefty here. I doubt that they're going to have Roarvet in the lineup, lefty on lefty. So he's going to be extremely popular again. I think it's a good game theory discussion on what to do and kind of flip the build and get off of him. I know we like Sal Perez in that other game as a spend up option. He would be my preferred spend up option. And then, yeah, the two White Sox catchers, if I do end up stacking them, are interesting. And then honorable mention to Carson Kelly against a lefty every single time.
Yeah, I think that Carson Kelly's interesting because he's down to 4K. I'll say last night I actually had Rueb in my lineup as well. And then when they put out the lineup, I just didn't care and I just moved in Jeffers.
Yeah.
So it worked out well for
Yep.
me. But I think if he's chalked tonight, highly unlikely I play him. I'm fine with the White Sox guys. Again, I do like Carson Kelly. I have no problems. But this position basically comes down to two guys for me. I guess it's 100% going to depend on what I do with my lineup. But Salvador Perez, if I can get him at 51, I think he's probably the best catcher option on the entire slate. And then Omar Narvaez is just way too cheap at 3,600. He's hitting fifth for Milwaukee. We already talked about Milwaukee being chalky. So I do think that he probably gets some ownership. And I feel like him and Perez are by far the best too. If I absolutely just have to spend down at catcher, Ryan Jeffers will 100% be an option at 3K. Kurt Suzuki also feels like a solid play. So you definitely have options here. We can move to first base though, which you just kind of have to assume at this point that Dan Vogelbach at 2,600, just a stupid price tag, is going to be the chalk, right?
Yeah, he is absolutely undeniably going to be the chalk today. Yeah, just a crazy price for a guy with the high batting second for a team with the highest implied team total on the slate.
Yep.
He does carry some pinch hit risk, but I mean, I'm not worried about it against this Arizona bullpen at all. It just feels like one of those spots that's going to be really difficult to avoid. You're really just hoping for him to fail and you pick up points elsewhere. I think Christian Walker is interesting at 3.3K. I feel like now that I'm talking about it, Bales, I'm talking about a lot of these Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
I might be there with you on that contrarian Arizona stack for sure. Other than them, I mean, yeah, the Minnesota guys are great. Kirilloff lefty on lefty is fine for me. He's just so talented, and I'm not afraid of Bubic. Miguel Sano, he hasn't been great this year, but we know that he has that 2 home run upside that we're always chasing in DFS. And then just honorable mention to Paul Goldschmidt, who's just been really hot at the plate, homered again yesterday, and just a guy that I always like to target, especially against a not great pitcher in Vladimir Gutierrez.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Just to add some names, Carlos Santana, 42 is way too cheap, especially against Hap. If you want to play someone like Shohei Ohtani or Jared Walsh because you get the lefty-lefty matchup, I 100% think that they're going to go a little bit under-owned solely for the fact that it is lefty-lefty. Both are better against right-handed pitching, and 100% honest, I don't care at all because I don't feel like Sheffield's going to be thrown deep into this game anyway. So the lefty-lefty matchup doesn't really bother me. Assuming Lamonte Wade is leading off for the Giants, I would have no problems playing him. I think that might be about it. I guess I'll also add Garrett Cooper. He's 4,300, was on absolute fire and gets a matchup against a relatively weak lefty, even though Anderson, I feel like, is one of the better pitching options on the slate. It's still like he's not a good pitcher. So to one off someone like Garrett Cooper, I think makes a lot of sense. Is there anyone else at first base that you're looking at?
Not really. I think we covered a lot of them here. Just the more I'm looking at it, the more I just think like Paul Goldschmidt, if I'm spending up, and then Vogelbach, if I'm saving, is probably the route that I'm going to go today.
Yeah, I like that call, but we can move on to second now. I feel like second's either a position where you're just literally spending nothing or you're paying up a ton, and there's just like no 3K guys that you really want to play that much. But I mean, there are options in the mid tier. I feel like Colton Wong makes a lot of sense. Whit Merrifield, those two guys are 4-2 for Wong, 5-4 for Merrifield, and I feel like they're by far the top options on the slate. I do believe you can go other guys like Jorge Polanco. Absolutely fine with Tommy Edman. If Goslin is hitting at least in a decent spot in the Angels lineup, I do like him against a left-handed pitcher. Outside of that, though, is there anyone you're looking at, or are you just kind of sticking with the Colton Wong with Merrifield duo?
Yeah, definitely interested in Wong. One thing, playing him as a one-off today. He's a guy who he's going to get it. He's not getting it done in one swing for you. You know what I mean? You're looking for him to have a multi-hit game where guys behind him are driving him in, like a Vogelbach, a Yelich, a Garcia, all those guys. So I wouldn't one off him, but in a Brewers stack or a little Brewers mini stack, I'm all about it. Whit Merrifield, I just feel like he's always priced up. Nobody plays him, but he can just get it done in so many different ways. Multi-hit upside, home run upside, stolen base upside against J.A. Happ. I definitely think he's interesting if you have the money. And then the one cheap guy I want to throw out there is Mike Freeman for the stone minimum 2K here against Adam Wainwright. Waino is having a pretty good year here. Not someone that I'm like actively trying to target, but I've played worse 2K options. That's for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Whit Merrifield's just like, it doesn't matter what type of game he's having. He always has the upside just because even if he walks, it's just could turn into a quick 7 for you. So, I mean, I absolutely love playing Merrifield. And I completely agree, especially hitting sixth. Mike Freeman is way too cheap, but we can move on to third base. What are you looking at here?
So third base for me, I've been, if anyone checked out my slate breakdown today, I'm locked in on one guy today. And it's Anthony Rendon. Today's finally the day, Bales. I just feel it. You know, I've been waiting for that breakout game for him, and today against Justice Sheffield, against a lefty, it just feels like it's coming. I've been really locked into Rendon. I think I'm going to have him in my cash and my tournament lineup. I've struggled to look elsewhere. That's how locked in I am on Rendon, but you know, a little bit cheaper options. Suarez leading off at 3.9K is really, really cheap. And then depending on where Hunter Dozier ends up in this lineup at 2.9K, he has third base eligibility. I think he's interesting. And then as always, Josh Donaldson, who Ben and I talked about it yesterday, he's just been chalk every single night on DraftKings. And now he gets a lefty. I don't think today's the day he goes overlooked. I think people play him again, but he's always in play against a lefty here.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think you basically nailed everything. I'll add 2 players. One, if you want to spend up at 54, Yoan Moncada, but I agree that I like Anthony Rendon more than Moncada tonight. And 2, at 3,300, Travis Shaw is just way too cheap. And he's not likely to really get that much ownership just because he's hitting sixth, and people generally will just look at the top stack, take 1 through 5. So Shaw's the type of guy that could go a little bit overlooked. But I mean, just 3,300 is kind of a stupid price tag in this matchup for him, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think I'm like playing a Shaw, Willie Adames, or Jackie Bradley Jr. is for sure a way to get contrarian tonight, while also getting exposure to this high team total with Milwaukee.
Yep, I completely agree. And we can move to shortstop. They finally have priced Mondesi up a little bit. He's at 4,500. I still think that's too cheap, assuming he's in the lineup and you 100% can play him. Outside of him, not a whole lot I really like here. I think Tim Anderson leading off is fine. I think Willie Adames at 4K is relatively okay, but I prefer him against left-handed pitching, and he's hitting 7th. So, you know, not really my favorite player or anything. Mike Freeman, shortstop eligible, so you could just drop down and take the 2K guy here. Man, outside of that, that's probably my pool. I think Brandon Crawford at 37 is relatively interesting, and I think like Edmundo Sosa at 31, if you want to take him, you know, you more or less can. But what are you looking at here for shortstop?
Yeah, pretty gross position for sure. I hope Mondesi cracks the lineup because I always like playing him. I said to Ben, I think it was like, what was that, like a week and a half ago when he finally came back. I was like, I'm playing this guy until he's 5K. He's still 4.5, so I think I'm just going to keep playing him. I definitely like Tim Anderson tonight. I think Casey Mize is definitely a pitcher that we can look to steal on. So if Anderson gets on, it could be a sneaky stolen base potential for him tonight. He might be my stolen base call of the night here at shortstop. But I agree, it's a pretty weak position in general. I completely agree that it's like you are either paying down or you're going up to these priority guys. Freeman, shortstop eligible. I think the one guy I want to give mention to is just JP Crawford. If he does lead off today against Griffin Canning under 3K, I think that's a fine spot here. Road leadoff hitter. Just hope that the volume gets him there because it is a pretty ugly position today.
Yeah, I agree with that. It just looks so bad. Moving on to the outfield, who are you looking at here? Because there's just so many really good options, which obviously is the case like basically every single night. But just outline a few of the guys that you really like out here.
Yeah, it's crazy how deep outfield is every single night. I go to write my article and I'm like, oh, I wish I could play like 7 outfielders. Um,
Yeah, I do that
yeah,
too.
I think even with all of these expensive guys that we've mentioned, like I mentioned how much of a priority Anthony Rendon is for me tonight. I don't know if I'm making a lineup without Christian Yelich tonight. 5.2K is still underpriced for him in this fantastic matchup. I think he's going to be extremely popular. We saw Ronald Acuna get up to 45 single entry GPPs. I expect that tonight for Christian Yelich. And even at those types of ownerships, it's pretty difficult for me to get off of him when he is like the one Brewer I like really, really want to play. So that's pretty tough. Kento Marte, I think he's one of the most underrated hitters in baseball that, common baseball fans don't know about, but he's continued his success from last season. Picking up right where he left off. So at 4.1K, I think he's priced down from where they normally have him in the high fours, low fives range. So I want to attack that while he's cheap. Some other guys, I think Kyle Garlick leads off tonight against a lefty, with Kepler and Garver down for them now. Man, the Twins are falling off pretty quickly here in terms of injuries and pitching. I mean, I think they're kind of done here already in June. So Kyle Garlick and Nelson Cruz against a lefty, definitely interested in them. And then, like you said before, Shohei, lefty on lefty. I'm not worried about that. And then Sam actually brought up in my Discord chat with him earlier. He's really on the Reds tonight. He thinks that their entire team is a little bit too cheap here, and I don't disagree with him. I think they're a pretty interesting contrarian stack here with the lower team total.
Yeah, I'll just start off by the Reds. I agree. They're 100% too cheap for what they can do. My issue is they're not playing at home and they are playing Adam Wainwright.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a tough spot. I 100% agree that they're way too cheap. I think another offense that's too cheap is the Angels. Like you have Justin Upton leading off. He's 3,500. Ohtani, we talked about. Obviously, he's not too cheap at 56, but 100% playable. Juan Lagares is 33. Assuming he's hitting fourth, you have Goslin is outfield eligible. Even like Taylor Ward is super cheap. I would assume that he's hitting more towards the back end of the lineup, though. All of them, I feel like, make fine options. Andrew Benintendi, it seems like a spot where he's going to go overlooked because of the lefty, but as we already expect, we don't really think that Hap's going to throw deep into this game, so he'll probably see a righty out of the pen at some point. You touched on Yelich. I think he's probably my favorite spend up. Avisail Garcia is only 3,900, which is just a ridiculous price tag. Dylan Carlson, honestly, I feel like we can literally do this all night. It's kind of crazy. Outfield is always just a bunch of underpriced players. Mike Yastrzemski's under 5K. He gets a matchup against Zach Davies. It's just way too many guys that are just way too cheap. Alex Dickerson at 3,000. Tyler O'Neill is finally up to 4,600, but still a relatively solid play.
Hitting the right now, Tyler O'Neill. He looks locked in at the plate.
Yeah, it's actually been pretty crazy what he's been doing. I also think that it's smart to mention Andrew Vaughn, I believe, is asymptomatic but has tested positive for COVID. It doesn't really seem like they're canceling games at this point in the season, especially when, they get the guy, they get him out of the clubhouse and everything. So I'm not overly worried about the White Sox game not playing, but it is something to note that they had a player today test positive for COVID, even though he's asymptomatic. I think that about does it in the outfield. There's other guys that obviously you can play. And if you have any questions, feel free to jump in our Discord. It's 100% free to get in. Go to dfskarma.com and you can get in there. You'll also find all of our articles and our core play subscriptions. You can get our core plays for as low as $5. There's multiple options. You can do daily, weekly, monthly. If you're a new subscriber at monthly or weekly, you get a free week of our optimizer. So a lot of incentive to join the team. I know that we've been really, really hot recently, and we're looking to keep that going tonight. But I believe we're at the point where, Rueb, I need a home run call from you. Who are you going with?
All right, so home run call tonight. I mean, I touched on it before. It has to be my boy Anthony Rendon for tonight. Like, he has to get it done for me here. I know 4.9K priority spend up here, but him versus a lefty. Just really been waiting for this moment for him to break out since coming off the IL. And then just one honorable mention, one that's cheap, is Jorge Soler. Against J.A. Happy, regardless of where he is in the order, he still has massive home run upside.
Yeah, I completely agree. I thought about Soler. I 100% agree with Rendon. I think that's a really good call. I will go with someone a bit cheaper on the Angels as well, and I will go Justin Upton home run tonight.
I like it. I like it a lot.
So that's all we have for you guys. I will be back tomorrow, same time with Ben. But for now, good luck tonight, and just get in our Discord if you guys have any questions.